Dear students, welcome to Programming in C subject. Today we are going to discuss about Module 4. In Module 4, we are going to discuss about user-defined function, recursion and files. So let us get into the content of this particular module. So this is the overall content of Module 4. So in user-defined function, first we are going to discuss about need for functions, types of functions, followed by function definition, declaration and its scope, category of functions, storage classes. In storage classes, we are going to discuss about 4 different classes, that is automatic, static, external and register. Now in the next topic, that is in the recursion, we are going to discuss about definition of recursion, types and recursion function, programming examples on recursive functions. And the last topic of this module is files. So here we are going to discuss about introduction to files, types of files, declaring a file pointer variable, opening a file, closing a file, reading data from files, writing data to the files and detecting the end of the file. So for these contents you can refer textbook 1, that is C Programming by Rima Tareja. In that particular book you are supposed to refer chapter 1 to chapter 11 to 11.9 and chapter 16, and in the second textbook you are supposed to refer chapter 7. This is about the contents. Now coming to the basic concepts of user defined functions. So C enables the programmer to break up the program into segments commonly known as functions. So here we are breaking the bigger program into smaller sub functions, and each of these functions can be returned more or less independent of each other. So here every function is given as a particular name to perform a well-defined task. Therefore, the code of one function is completely insulated from that of another function. So here every function has a name which acts as an interface to the outside world in terms of how the information is transferred to it and how the results are generated by the function as transmitted back from it. Now this operation is depicted in the block diagram shown here. As you can see, there is a main block or a main program which is calling a function named as function 1. So here main is known as the calling function and function 1 is termed as the called function. So when a main function calls a function, then compiler encounters a function call. So instead of executing the next statement in the calling function, the control jumps to the statement that are a part of the called function. So after the called function is executed, the control is returned back to the calling function. So here it's like an interrupt wherein you have a call from a main function. So the sub function will be executed and then the control will be transferred to the main function. So this is how the function works. Now coming to the another important concept of function. So in a main program can have multiple sub functions, so which can perform different operations. So the main function can call multiple functions within a stipulated instant of time. So a main function can call function 1, function 2, function 3, so on, or it can call a single function multiple times within a loop. This is also possible. So if you want to call a single function multiple times in a main function, we are going to call this function within a while loop, for loop, or within a do while loop. So this function will be called multiple times till the condition is true. Once the condition goes false, the calling will get stopped. So it is not only the main function that is going to call the function. So here any one function can call another function. So if you want function 1 can call function 2, function 2 can call function 3 can call function 1, and so on. So the option is provided here in such a way that the function can call the other subsequent function. So this is about the basic introduction to functions. Now let us see what is the need for this particular function and how it is helpful in the upcoming slides. Now coming to the need of functions, dividing a program into a separate well-defined function facilitates each functions to be written and tested separately. So instead of having a bigger program, we can break the program into a subparts, and each of them could be tested separately, and this simplifies the process of getting the total program to work properly. And understanding coding and testing multiple separate functions are far easier than doing the same for one large function. So this is the main advantage of dividing the program into functions. So if a bigger program has to be developed without the use of any function, then there will be countless times the main function has to be called. So this disadvantage is overcome by using functions. Now all the libraries in C, basically it contains a set of functions that the program has to use in their programs. Therefore the function has to be pre-written and pre-tested, so that the programmers can use them without worrying about their code details, so which speeds up the program execution and the program development. So the availability of a standard functions directly in a C program helps the programmer to develop the code in an easier manner. So this is the need for functions. Now we'll move to the classification of functions. So functions, basically they are classified into two important types. One is library function, the other one is user defined function. So these are the two main classes of functions which is available in C. So first let us take up the library functions. So library functions in C, they are nothing but the standard functions which is available. So the C compiler, it has a collection of various functions which performs some predefined standard tasks, and these functions are returned by the C compiler, and it is not developed by the user. These collection of functions are called as library functions, or it's also called as inbuilt functions. So the implementation details of these functions are not known to the programmers. Instead, they are defined in their respective header files. So library functions, the other name is given as built-in functions or predefined functions, or they're also called as standard functions. So in C also we have various inbuilt functions or predefined functions. Few of them are listed here below. We have a predefined function called as scanf, which is an input function, printf, which is an output function, square root, which is used to find out the square root of a number, get character function, which is used to read the character from the console window, which is also called as console function, and string length, which is used to find out the length of a string. Like this, a set of functions are provided from the C compiler itself. So each of these functions are defined in particular header files like stdio.h, conio.h, math.h, and string.h, etc. And these library functions can be accessed simply by writing the name of the function followed by a set of arguments within the parenthesis, which is shown as an example below. So here we are trying to find out the square and square root of a number. So here the example given is the variable is x. I am trying to find out the square of this value, which is denoted as x square, and this is implemented in C using the inbuilt function POW, which is called as power function. So first the variable name is given followed by the power value. So here, since we are finding the square of a number, the value is taken as 2. The other example is if we are trying to find x to the power 5, then the function used again is power and x comma 5. So the below example shows you how to take the square root of a number using the sqrt function. So these are a few of the inbuilt mathematical functions which is used directly by the C programmer. Now coming to the header files, they are also known as the function prototypes, used to include which includes the appropriate files or functions in the beginning of the program. So some of the commonly used header files are listed below. So as we know, most of the time we'll be using the header file stdio.h, which is named as standard input output header file, which includes scanf and printf statements. All the input and output statements or functions are included here. The next header file is console input output header file, which includes the input output reading function for the characters like get character, put character, and clear screen, etc. And similarly, for performing the mathematical operations, we have inbuilt function in the header file math.h, which includes SQRT, that is square root function, power function, sine function, cos function, etc. And similarly, the functions related to strings are included in the header file string.h, which includes strlen, that is string length function, strrev, string reverse function, string compare function, and string upper and lower functions, etc. Similarly, C type, that is character type files are included, or functions are included in the header file C type.h, which includes is upper, is lower, is two upper and two lower functions, etc. So few header files are listed below. Like this, we have several header files that will help the programmer to build the C code. Now let us understand the operation of these functions and header files with a simple example where I am trying to find the square root of a number. So here we require an input and output, so I am including stdio.h. So I want to print the value on the screen, so I want to clear the screen, so I am including the header file conio.h in order to use clear screen function. And since I am finding the square root of a number, I require sqrt function, so I am including the header file math.h. Now I have created a main function here. So two variables have taken, that is n and s. So n is the input number, s is the square root of a number. So first we are printing the statement, enter the value of n, then I am including a scanf statement where since it is an integer value, I am taking it as %d and or ampersand n. Then s is taken as sqrt of n, and that value is getting printed on the screen using printf function. So in the above program, we have seen how the library functions such as scanf, printf, clear screen, and sqrt can be used. So on the execution, it produces the result, that is square root of any value given to integer variable m. So here the programmer need not know the actual code for getting the square root of value. Instead, it is defined in the predefined library function, that is sqrt function, which is available in the header file, that is math.h. So this is about the basic library functions or standard library functions usage with respect to C programming. Now we'll move now to user defined function, which are nothing but the function developed by the user. So as the name indicates, these are the functions developed by the users to achieve a specific task. And it is always better to use library functions while writing a program, but whenever library functions are not available, we write user defined functions. So these functions are returned for the task which cannot be performed by the available library functions. Now coming to the elements of user defined functions, in general there are basically two basic elements that is available in user defined function, that is function definition and function call. Now let us understand these two terminologies with few examples in the next slide. Now before going into that, let us understand the terminology. The function that uses another function is known as the calling function, and the function which is called is known as the called function. The inputs that the function has to take are known as arguments. Okay, the input that is taken from the function is called as an argument. The function which is going to call is known as the calling function, and the function which is performing the function for the calling function is known as the called function. So when a called function returns some result back to the calling function, it is set to return that result. The calling function may or may not pass parameters to the called function. So if the called function accepts arguments, the calling function will pass parameters. So arguments are given from the main function or the calling function, and parameters are returned from the called function. So main is the function that is called by operating system, and therefore it is supposed to return the result of the processing to the operating system. So these few terminologies, it is always necessary to understand the next consecutive topics of functions. Now let us see the declaration of function. Function declaration statement identifies a function with a name and a list of arguments that it can accept and the type of the data it returns. So basically we are supposed to have a name, an argument or a return value or return parameters. So in general format, declaring a function that accepts some arguments and returns some value is results can be written as shown below here. So return data type function name. First you are supposed to return what is the type of the data it has to return, then followed by function name and a list of arguments or variables within the round bracket. So no functions can be declared within the body of another function. This we are supposed to remember, that is float is the title of the data type of the function, average is the title of the function, and here integer a and integer b are the arguments. This is considered as illegal because return value is float but the data type value is taken as integer here. Next, function definition. Function definition consists of a function header that identifies the function followed by the body of function containing the executable code for that function. So when a function is defined, space is allocated for the function in the memory. The syntax of the function definition can be given like this as shown below. So first we are supposed to give the return data type followed by function name and data type followed by variable 1 and variable 2 or multiple variables like this you can declare, and within flower brackets we are supposed to give the statements of the function, and then we have, so at the end we are supposed to mention the value that we are supposed to return, or the return variable has to be mentioned. The number and the order of the arguments in the function header must be same as that of the given function declaration statement. This is one thing what we are supposed to importantly follow in function declaration. So this is about declaration, initialization and need for function. Now we'll move to the next concept called as function call. The function call statement invokes the function. That is, it is telling that a function is called. So when a function is invoked, the compiler jumps to the called function and it executes the statements that are a part of the function. And once the called function is executed, the program control is passed back to the calling function. And function call statements can be declared as follows. So you have to give the function name followed by the variable list or the argument. This is how the function is called within a main function. And there are few important points what we are supposed to remember while calling a function. Function name and the number and the type of the argument in the function call must be the same as that is given in the function declaration and function header of the function definition. That is the name of the function, whatever we have given here for the subfunction, the same name has to be declared in the calling function also. Name and the name of the variable in the function declaration, function call and header of the function definition may vary, but arguments may be passed in the form of an expression to the called function. So in such a case, arguments are first evaluated and converted to the type of the formal parameters, and then body of the function gets executed. So this is the one crucial thing what we are supposed to remember. If the return type of the function is not void, then the value returned by the called function may be assigned to some variable in the given main function. So variable name is equal to function name followed by variable 1 and variable 2. So the return value can be assigned to any variable which is defined in the main function. So let us understand this with a programming example. Now here we are calling a function to perform addition of a number. A simple program. Now we can see that we have started with the header file stdio.h. Then I am calling a function as sum, that is sum, and the data type of this is integer. Within that I have taken two variable a and b as an integer. So here I am calling I have a main function wherein I have two variables num1 and num2, and the result, that is the sum of the two numbers, is stored in the variable total, and the initial value of that is declared as 0. Now using a printf and a scanf statement, I am reading the two numbers, that is number 1 and number 2, and then the resultant variable total is taken as sum of num1 comma num2. So here we are calling the subfunction sum, where the addition of the two numbers is carried out. Then we are printing that value. So but in the main function, as you can see, we are performing, the main function is calling the subfunction, that is sum, and the subfunction sum is returning the value as a plus b. A simple program wherein declaration of main function, declaration of sum function, and the return value by performing the operation is shown here as an example. So I hope you have followed this. So this is a program that uses the function. Like this, you can write any program of your own to understand the working of a function. That is how you can see here the return value is a plus b, and main is the calling function and sem is the called function. Now this is another program where we are trying to perform an addition here, but the difference here is that the result here will be displayed in the subfunction itself, but in the previous program the result is displayed in the main function. So as you can see here both are defined as void functions, void add. Okay, so void means it doesn't return any value. So but here the inputs are given from the main function, the output is evaluated in the subfunction, and it is printed on the screen. So the void indicates that there is no return value. So the two numbers are entered in the main function and it is given to the sum function add, and in the subfunction the addition operation is performed between the two variables, and the result is assigned to the variable sum, and the result is printed here in the program itself. So you have an option here to print the result either in the main function or in the sub function.